Hello, everybody. Good afternoon and welcome to another episode of Live at the Waterhole. First up, we're in East Africa, the country of Kenya, at the Ol Donyo Lodge. My name is Ralph Kirsten, and what does the bush hold in store for us today? Well, you'll have to sit back, relax, and watch as the animals come down to quench their thirsts and cool off. And as per usual, please don't forget that this is a live and interactive experience, so we'd love for you to jump on board with us and send us through your questions and your comments. You can do that by going on the WildEarth website and registering. You can also join the conversation on X, formerly known as Twitter, using the hashtag WildEarth. What is it that you'd like to see? What would you like to chat about? Whatever it is, wildlife related, send it on through. We can see here this little striped ground squirrel. It's a different species that we don't often get to see, so nice to spend some time with them. And already Joanne Mellows on board with us saying happy Tuesday, WildEarth and Ralph. I can't wait to see what's in store for today. Yeah, you never can tell with the wildlife out in the bush. And then we've got a superb starling just in the foreground, being as superb as ever, while the little squirrel forages in between all of the elephant dung there. And Mercedes Bean saying, hey, Ralph and chatters, ready for another day at the Waterhole. Welcome aboard, Mercedes. Lovely to have you with us. I'm wondering if we maybe get to see the big 1-ton elephant, as he's called, with the massive tusks. So Jordan, director, saying that 1-ton was here earlier on today. So maybe he's had his drink and he's drunk his fill and he's gone off. So unfortunately, maybe the chances are low as he's already been here today. Quite interesting with the little ground squirrels. You often see them flattening themselves out on the ground, and that's especially when it's very hot and they find themselves a nice little cool spot under a tree and where there's a nice open patch of ground, and then they'll spread themselves out and try to dissipate their heat. So we can see, as per usual, there's quite a bit of clouds around here at Ol Donyo, probably obscuring our view of the roof of Africa and Mount Kilimanjaro. But with that being said, I think it's time to go and have a look at what the weather's going to be like across all the different locations. So for the most part, lots of sun around. There's an odd patch of clouds and a little bit of rain, but mostly nice and sunny. And that does bode well for having reptiles out and active. And here we've gone to the Greater Kruger Park at Narrated Dam. And we see ourselves a water monitor lizard who's sunning himself. This is a relatively small one. They can get up to and bigger than around about 2 meters. And I would say probably the biggest weapon of a monitor lizard is that very strong tail of theirs. They use it like a whip. And like with the pythons as well, they've got a mouth full of bacteria. So you don't want to get bitten by them either. It'll take a very long time to heal, and you can have a lot of infection coming as a result as well. So Ant's asking, is that a monitor? Yes, it is indeed a monitor lizard, but specific in being a water monitor lizard. We also get rock monitor lizards, but as the name suggests, they tend to be more so in the rocks, not so much at the water. You often find them climbing in trees as well. This water monitor lizard looks like he might have a feather sticking out of his mouth. I wonder if he's caught himself a bird. So Joanne Mello saying cute little reptile. Yeah, they are at this stage, but once they get a bit bigger, they're not so cute anymore. And I've actually been out in Damaraland, staying with some of the local people when we did some elephant projects and securing the water points, etc. And then going out with the tribesmen with their goats. And the one day we were going with the goats, and the dogs were with us, and they came across a rock monitor lizard. And I tell you what, we knew that there was a big problem because the dogs got smacked by the tail, and they all screamed and ran off. And they never went back towards that monitor lizard. And I think one of the dogs may even have had a broken jaw. So they're not to be messed with, especially when they get bigger. So Ants was asking, do those monitors break their tails if you pick it up by the tail to escape? No, they don't drop their limbs like you might get with little lizards. Their defense is literally to keep their tail and use it as a weapon. So they're big enough to not have to do this. And I wonder what this chap has got in his mouth. Apparently, he was fighting with a squirrel a little bit earlier. I don't know if that's fluff, but it looks more like a feather. Almost like he's got himself a feathery meal. You see, he's also flattening himself out here, but this is more likely to be getting more sun exposure so that he gets his energy. Remember that they are ectothermic. So I'm not quite a fan of the term cold-blooded because they're not always cold-blooded. They just take their energy from outside, external heat sources. So his blood will be warm now, especially lying in the sun. So can we still call it a cold-blooded animal? So Mercedes Bean saying he's definitely caught something. That's my thinking as well, Mercedes Bean. Either that or he's just using it as a toothpick. You know, we like to sometimes sit with a piece of grass, something sticking out your mouth. Maybe that's what he's doing. A bit of a decoration. But I think he's definitely eaten something that's got feathers. Maybe he got a little chick. So in that throat area, definitely looks like there is something inside there. So I think he's had a bit of a meal, which is good for him. But a little bit more on the monitor lizards, and this comes from Hideaways Africa. You have a nice little write-up from them, or about them, and things you didn't know about the monitor lizard. In southern Africa, there's 2 species of these large lizards that some herpetologists say are more closely related to a snake than a lizard. Like the rest of their genus Varanus, the Nile monitor lizard and the rock monitor lizard stand on their hind legs to monitor their surroundings, hence their name. These fast and fierce creatures are sometimes spotted at lodges all around Africa, and it's Africa's largest lizard. They can grow to incredibly large. In fact, the famous Komodo dragon is a species of monitor lizard. Of the 2 species found in southern Africa, the largest size they can grow to is in and around 2 meters. This guy trying to wipe off this feather, I think. Although this is very rare when they get that big. It is a very big one. And look at him still trying to... I think it's a bit stuck. There we go. Is it a moth? Well, there, it's definitely down now. Well done, chap. So the rock monitor lizard is a bit shorter and stockier, but has a longer tail. These long tails are used by the monitor lizards as oars when they're swimming, and whips, as I mentioned, when they defend themselves. Now, interesting is that they're very similar to snakes with a distinctive forked tongue. You can see it as it comes out there. And they're used to detect scent molecules from the air. And they also can hiss when they're threatened. So they're considered the most intelligent of all the lizards. And when kept in a captivity, they can be trained to count to 6. And in the wild, they're able to remember where their hiding places are, specifically the various routes to get there. They're also the only lizard species that don't regrow their tail after losing it. And that would answer the previous question earlier on. They're excellent hunters. They'll work together to raid a crocodile's nest, with one lizard distracting the mother and the other stealing the eggs. Monitor lizards have incredibly strong jaws and will grip tightly without letting go. They also secrete poisonous toxins in their saliva that harms their prey. I'm pretty sure that's part of the problem if you ever get bitten by them and they break the skin. Being carnivores, they'll eat anything from eggs to small mammals, fish, other small reptiles, and birds as well. He starts wading through the water there, and you'll see as he goes, a very snake-like motion there, pushing himself through the water. They're ingenious in their breeding methods. They use their sharp claws to dig into a termite mound where they lay their eggs. And the hard-working termites then close the hole and provide a secure temperature-controlled nest for the eggs. Once the monitor eggs hatch, they then feast on the termites before making their way out of the mound. Very interesting along and around the monitor lizard, who seems like now has disappeared. So as he disappears off into the water, I think we'll disappear off into the stratosphere and head all the way back to Ol Donyo. Where our little squiggle is still around, happily feeding and using his tail as an umbrella. So Gina asking, would a monitor lizard ever eat a scrub hare? So it all depends how big the monitor lizard is, because definitely I think the larger ones would most likely be able to eat a scrub hare, but a little one like that would only perhaps be able to eat a baby scrub hare, but I would think an adult would be a little bit too big for it. But when it does come to feeding, quite similar to snakes as well, that's why a lot of scientists do group them together with them, monitor lizards, they will swallow their food whole or in very big pieces, and they're able to dislocate their thyroid bone in order to enlarge their throat, so that they can then swallow down massive prey species. And Ant saying that this little squirrel could be a Disney character. Yeah, much in the likes of Ice Age. That's for sure. Mercedes Bean saying interesting info. Thanks, Ralph. You're very welcome, Mercedes. Always like to find all sorts of information of whatever we're looking at. So the little squirrel is squiggled off. We'll just see if he makes his way back. See there, just too many clouds once again for us to be able to see Mount Kilimanjaro off in the distance there. Straight in the middle of the screen now is where you would see it. The clouds are just blocking the snow-capped peaks. So a little bit quiet, except for lots of birds, but I think let's change of place and let's head to Zimbabwe and Victoria Falls. Where we've got marabou storks once again, and it looks like a hooded vulture. I think they've probably had their little snack at the lodge itself. Is that a crocodile? I think it is. Off in the background there. A little flat dog. And I think there's a mongoose that just ran behind a bush. Right, there he goes. Out into the shade. I think it looks like a mopani tree. Looks like he's disappeared. And Spaz Lankov saying, looking forward to a fantastic Live at the Waterhole show today, Ralph. Hopefully we see something exciting. As always, welcome aboard, Spaz. Nice to have you with us. And let's see what happens. You never can tell. It's the first time I've noticed that crocodile here. You can just make out its tail scales and then its head. There we are. Definitely a flat dog, that's for sure. And the egret making its way through. Looking for fish, I think. Seems to be lots around. This is the real problem with crocodiles. They lay motionless like this for hours, sometimes even days. So everything becomes a bit lackadaisical around them. The animals almost forget that it's there because it's so still, and suddenly they launch their attack. So we're still here at the same spot, just a different perspective. We've got a lot of these hooded vultures around. He's going to poke that warthog. Are these warthogs alive? You would think so, being a whole family of them here. Is it breathing? I'm not quite sure. The eyes opening, so I'm wondering, I think these vultures think it's dead, but he might just feel that a little bit ticklish. I think eventually he might wake up. Just happily snoozing. Oh, they're going to go for the eye. If they poke him in his eye, that'll definitely wake it up. Yo, hello. That'll be a nasty way to wake up from a lovely sleep with vultures trying to pick your eye out. So Luca saying, would a vulture kill a warthog? They wouldn't really be strong enough to kill a warthog. Unless in this instance, if it was immobilized, if it had broken legs or something like that, that they would initially start feeding on the eyes. That's the softest thing they can get to. And as you saw there, that woke the warthog up. I think it might just be very hot. And so these warthogs are just quite lethargic and enjoying the shade. It looks like the youngsters have taken the best part of the shade. And so they're not too perturbed about all of these vultures hanging about. And Mindy Tillapore saying, how odd is that? It's awesome. You never know what to expect, as I've mentioned. And Kenneth Gamble saying, very interesting spot to sleep. Yeah, they don't seem to be too worried about anything. Marula Shortcake saying, this is too cute. The piggies in slumber and the vultures all trying to get themselves some food. There doesn't seem to be anything around here. So this is near to the vulture restaurant. That's why all these vultures are around. And I'm wondering if these warthogs even came in to try and have a bit of a feed on the meat as well. Much like pigs, they are omnivorous, being part of the Suidae family. Pretty much all of them are. Bush pigs, I would say, a little bit more so than warthogs, who do prefer to graze. But they will also eat meat if it's available. And so at this vulture restaurant, maybe they came in for a bit of meat protein for a change today. Darcy Miller, welcome aboard, saying I've never seen that before. It's a very interesting one, hey. So Spaz Lankov was asking how many vulture species could we identify here at Vic Falls. We have seen the hooded vultures, the white-backed vultures, lappet-faced vultures. I think those are all the ones that we have seen so far. And then, of course, the marabou storks as well. So the marabou storks also still hanging about, hoping for any little scraps that may be left. So Callum asking, don't they get hot sleeping like that? Well, you can see the majority of them all in the shade. It's just the one individual that's out in the sun, but you would think so, hey? So Bianca was asking, wouldn't predators come and get them like this? You could think that, yes, they could, Bianca, but generally during the heat of the day is when a lot of animals do take their rest, because there's very little, especially when it's very hot, predator activity. So the animals then also use that time to rest up. And I have a feeling that these are lodge piggies, because very close to the safari lodge, and very often at these lodges they've got beautiful manicured lawns, and the warthogs can get in even under electric fences. They go in through the little jackal holes, or they even make their own, and then they go and graze on the lovely watered grass, and they do become very sort of tame. So it's lovely for the tourists to see them nice up. Well, I wouldn't say tame, they're more so just habituated and not as nervous. They don't run away from people. This one, you can see that hooded vulture just having a look at the rear end and seeing, because those are the two places that they do normally get into carcasses. They get into the eyes and then open it up from the rear end. But I don't think they're going to stand a chance of opening up a live warthog. I'm sure it would jump up if it got poked in the bottom. So just about every lodge that you will go to will have some resident animals around the lodge. Nyala are one that really do like to hang in and around the lodges. Once again, enjoying the lovely lush greenery that is very often artificially made just for the comforts of the lodge area. So the animals do come in and utilize that too. Lots of mongoose do get into areas. Especially banded mongoose is one that I've noticed that do come through, and sometimes even have their nests and their burrows in under the lodges. One such place is at Namutoni on the eastern side of Etosha. There's a huge family of banded mongoose that live underneath the restaurant, and I've been seeing them since I started going to Namibia as a professional. And so that's from about 2001. And there was a family there of about 5 or 6 of them. And now I'd say there must be 50 plus. It's a huge family. And there's resident warthogs as well. There's jackals that come through, especially at night. But you'll find that each and every lodge that you go to has its specific local resident animals. At Namutoni, in the middle of Etosha, the honey badgers come through at night and knock over the rubbish bins, a little bit like soccer yobs. But you need to stay out of their way, even if they're making a mess. I've made the mistake of trying to chase them off with my mag light, and they had me up on the table. Because you stomp your foot to try and get rid of it, and then that just makes the honey badgers come for you. As opposed to with jackals, when you stamp the ground or throw a stone, they scuttle off. Not so with a honey badger. And Alka saying that this is piggy heaven. Absolutely. Bar the vultures trying to peck at them. It looks very comfortable and very sleepy, hey? So Picasso is saying, hi Ralph, how common are warthogs poached for meat? Picasso, it's generally where there is poaching, they don't really choose which animals that they go for. Very often with snares, so whatever gets caught, and it normally depends on the height of where they put the snares to sort of distinguishes which animals do get caught. But they're generally after the likes of warthog, springbok, impala. A lot of the bigger animals sometimes break the wires and so on, and it's much easier to sort of catch the little ones. And even a warthog like this is quite a size, so that would be enough for somebody to carry off, but you wouldn't be able to carry two of them. You need a few of you. And Harry Lolly saying, amusing to watch the vultures poke the warthog as it sleeps. And I don't think they're done just yet. They're still hungry, and they're looking for any chance of a meal. When we first came here, I actually thought that warthog was dead, but it's very evident that it's not, and they're all just enjoying a snooze and quite a deep sleep, actually. There's a lovely stretch from one of the piglets there. And it looks to be 6 piglets, so I'm pretty sure that this is all of the piglets and that they've had. Generally they can have between 6 and 8 piglets, and they can have them twice a year, sometimes even 3 times a year. So there's a lot of them that do get taken out by predators, but this is why I'm also thinking that these are lodge piggies, because normally you don't see all 6 surviving, and these ones have gotten to a decent size already. So I'm thinking that they hang around the safety of the lodge. They look nice and fat, although hindgut fermenters always do, but they're in excellent condition, and I think it's as a result of eating that lovely greenery at the lodge. So Hudson asking, will warthogs ever bite each other's tails off like zebra do? I think it's probably possible, Hudson, but I haven't seen it before, so I don't think it happens very regularly, and they don't really live in the same social structure as a zebra, who live in harems, so it's one male with lots of females. With the warthogs, it's just one male, one female, and then the little piglets, so they generally get along. So changed up of place, we've changed of country, we've headed on back to South Africa, but just on the border of Botswana in the Madikwe Game Reserve of the Northwest Province at Tau Lodge. Nice little herd of blue wildebeest, some zebra just moving through in the background. There's a grey heron just fishing here on the banks of this waterhole. That heron looks like he may have gotten himself something. I wonder if it's a frog. While the zebra happily rolls in the dust in the background. Yeah, that heron's got himself something big. Looks like he just swallowed the whole thing down. It was either a crab but I think more likely a frog. You see, I think he's going to struggle to digest that. It was quite big. Trying to get it down now. Oh, hello. Here comes an elephant. You can just see his feet in the background there. With the tip of its trunk. Prehensile tip of it. 2 little fingers. Oh, and a couple of ostriches. And Joanne Mello saying, love to go to Africa. This is the next best thing. Absolutely. Must agree with you, Joanne. Julia saying it's all happening at Tau today. Yeah. Some nice little differences here. Especially nice to see the ostriches. Grey heron swallowing down its meal. What else do we have? Looks like the elephant wants us to go for a drink. There's a game viewer moving through in the background. Around this time, I think it's potentially a new check-in for 2 o'clock. Happy safari goers, I'm sure. All right, so nobody's on board just yet. Maybe he's on his way to fetch them. That's why it's a bit of a Ferrari safari currently. Those are 2 male ostriches. You can see by their brilliant black feathers with the white on the bottoms of their wings and their tails. So Timothy asking, how do male ostriches display dominance? Well, Timothy, they fight. They fight for it. They do elaborate dances. That's one of the functions of the feathers that they have now, because obviously they are flightless. They're too heavy, so they can't fly anymore. So they use their feathers to help just keep their legs from being exposed to the sun if it's very hot. You see them hanging their feathers down now, so just creating a bit of shade. But more importantly, for mating rituals. They do a very elaborate dance to impress the females, but they also do it towards the males to intimidate each other. And if they can't intimidate with the dance, then they'll literally run up to each other and fight. They sort of bump into each other's chests, so they bump each other like that, and then they kick at each other with with their two toes, very big hooks on their toes, and they can actually kill each other. So very aggressive between the males when they come into breeding plumage and they're fighting over females. I think the most amazing encounters I've had of this was when I was at Giraffe Game Reserve, and there I spent a lot of time for WildEarth, and I put a lot of this on the screen as well. But the ostriches, the way that they called, very similar sound to that of a lion calling in the distance, but it's like a very deep booming call, and then accompanied with the dance that they put on. And if that doesn't work, then they'll fight. But I saw this a lot, almost every single day during a set period. It was for about a month. And all the ostriches were fighting and mating with the females. So Spaz Lankoff asking, ever seen zebras digging for water before, Ralph? I've seen quite a lot of animals that have almost learned to dig for water, especially in the likes of the ephemeral rivers in Namibia, so in Damaraland. The elephants normally start it, and then a lot of the animals from cows to donkeys to zebra to kudu, they all sort of also go and dig near to where the elephants have been digging, because very often the water, the elephants can smell it out. And so they go and dig these big holes, but very often it dries up a little bit, and just below the surface of the soil, if they dig in the elephants' holes that they've dug, then they can get to water. So that's where I've seen zebra doing it as well, the Hartman's Mountain zebra, but not really anywhere else. It's generally the elephants that need to start it, and so zebra generally need open water for them to survive. Obviously, the mountain zebra, they are more adept at surviving in desert conditions, so they don't need to drink as much water. The plain zebra, they are very water dependent. And Kenneth Gamble saying, wouldn't mind sitting in a camp chair with a good book, binoculars in hand, and enjoying that view. That's one of the best things. All these lodges are very well situated. And during the middle of the day, I really enjoy taking my bird book, a pair of binoculars, and yeah, nice to take a good book as well. Nice story book. And then sit there and then just enjoy the sights and sounds. What a view that is, absolutely. Right, so nice stop in here at Tau. Nice to see a couple of different things with that grey heron just feeding on what I think was a frog and the ostriches. But time to change of place, and let's go nearly to the tip of Africa and Stony Point. Where we've got our lazy Hyraxes doing what they do best, being lazy, 95% of the time. I think they're probably the only animal that's lazier than a lion. Now, a lot of people, I might hear them from afar saying that lions aren't lazy, they're just energy efficient. That's what I like to say that I'm being when I am being lazy. Synonymous, but I think the Hyraxes are even more energy efficient than lions. So Kenneth asking, have I ever been to Madikwe? Yes, I have, Kenneth, and I went specifically to see wild dogs, and wild dogs is what we saw. So that's one of my favorite places in South Africa, to go in search of wild dogs, and if I have guests that request that, that's exactly where I take them. Madikwe, one of the best spots for wild dogs. So Joanne Mello saying, yes, this is the favorite place. Love the sound of the ocean. Thank you, and thank you, Joanne. It's always nice to visit in here. So I'll be quiet for a little while, and let's just listen to the sounds of the ocean. So Doc GL was asking, what do Hyrax eat? Now, Doc GL, they eat, they're omnivorous, actually. And they normally eat within the family group, and they all face outwards from the circle because they are very much persecuted by predators, very often predatory birds, especially black eagles, or Burroughs eagles, the crowned eagles, and a number of others. So they've got to be very vigilant, and so by going in the family group and everybody facing outwards, they have a much better chance of seeing any potential predators. They feed on grass, herbage, leaves, fruit, insects, lizards, and even bird eggs. So just about whatever they can come across. But when they sit after taking off a sort of a mouthful of grass or leaves, they'll normally look up and chew while they cautiously check the vicinity, and then go back down to feed again or take off a bite and then heads up once more. Almost like mongoose in that kind of behavior. So Baobab Girl was asking, are domestic dogs the only animals that cock their legs when urinating or marking their territories? So Baobab Girl, almost. Leg cocking is also seen in wolves, obviously where the dogs get it from, and foxes as well. So we do see that in foxes. And, you know, if you look at cats and the rest of them, most of them, you know, they squat when they urinate. And then they stand up straight and urinate out the back when marking their territories, for instance. So, yeah, only dogs, wolves, and foxes. So Dark Mane Lover was asking, what's the rarest animal that I've ever seen on the waterholes that I'll probably never see again? I'm trying to rack my brain, Dark Mane Lover, because, you know, generally the time of day that we've been watching, in the heat of the day, we haven't really seen those secretive animals coming through, which you would see if we did this at night. As we see this individual here urinating off the side of the rock. Thanks for that. And defecating now as well. But that's often what you'll see happening when they live up on the cliffs and they urinate off the side of the rock like that. And then the urine, very high in uric acid, it turns white. So you can actually see from a very long distance where there's groups of hyraxes or families of them, those white stains on the rocks. It's either hyrax or birds of prey, but more so you'll see it from the hyraxes, and you can pretty much conclude when you see those white stains that it is hyrax, but good to just double check and see that there's not a bird of prey nest there as well, because it could also come from them. So just to finish the question, yeah, I haven't seen many rare animals in the middle of the day. We've seen countless elephants, especially in Madikwe, at Jamala. I would say that's probably the spot where the most elephants have come through. There was elephant festivals going on in the heat of summer. It's calmed down a bit now, I think with the temperature drop and us heading into winter is the primary cause of that. But we had wild dogs coming through at Jamala as well. Just trying to think, as I say, I think it's just been the general game. We've seen some lovely birds of prey coming in, especially at Ol Donyo, with the African harrier hawks and hawk eagles as well, coming in for a bath there, nice and close up and at that brilliant perspective, and the birds don't know that we're there, so they're very relaxed. So don't often get to see this in person, because you drive up to a waterhole or you walk up to it, the animals know that you're coming and they fly off. So you don't really get to see this kind of big birds, having a bird bath. As we just take a little bit of a quick tour of the area, see if there's any other dussies around. See those kelp forests in the water in the background. Lovely overview of Betty's Bay, and you see how thick those kelp forests are. Right, so lovely stop in here, and I'm glad we got to see the dussies and hear the sounds of the waves. But I think time to change of place. Let's go back to Zimbabwe, but this time to Tembo Plains. With a lovely view on an elephant, looks like a bull. Lots of mud on him. Doesn't seem to be much water around here, so I wonder what he's up to. So Tembo actually means elephant. So it's lovely to come to Tembo Plains and see an elephant. And this is located in the private Sapi Reserve in Zimbabwe. And the camp honors the elephant and these animals found on these Zimbabwean plains alongside the Zambezi River. And they draw on the elephant's pace and essence for the Tembo Plains Lodge camp atmosphere. And Tembo Plains Camp reflects more than just a place. It also speaks to the long and unique relationship with the elephants. And what a beautiful view that is over the Zambezi River. So Mandy commenting that this is just stunning. And Lisa Opperman saying, now there is the water. Absolutely. And I have to say that this is my all-time favorite river on the planet. Not that I've visited too many other rivers in around the world. I have through Europe and so on, but this river is just amazing, full of tiger fish. They and a lot of tilapia, bream as they call it locally. They also have massive catfish, and there's the barbel run that happens once a year, where the barbel head up the river to spawn, and then all the predatory fish, the tiger fish, chase them. So the water comes alive. And the bream that nest in the reeds, and the crocodiles and the hippos, it's just incredible. And then you've got Lake Kariba, the largest man-made lake on the planet. You've got Victoria Falls, and then you've got the Lower Zambezi National Park. It's just incredible. And then that heads through to Cahora Bassa in Mozambique, another massive man-made lake, also for the hydroelectric power, just like Kariba Lake as well, and before it heads on out into the sea. Now, a very interesting question come here through from Picasso asking, hi Ralph, do elephant cows eat their afterbirth? This is a very interesting topic because, and this is according to Biomed Central, they say that almost every animal on the planet which produces a placenta eats it after birth. There's only a few exceptions to this rule: aquatic animals, camels, and humans. In fact, humans are so averse to eating their own placenta after birth that it has not been recorded by any culture anywhere in the world in all of human history, written history or known history. We have buried them, burned them, and occasionally sold them as medicine to other people. But as far as we know, we have never routinely eaten our own. But just in that, there's the answer that elephants do, and I've seen some rare video footage of it as well. So there is evidence of elephants doing this. But I think we're just going to change of place quickly, and we're going to head down to the Eastern Cape of South Africa and Founders Lodge. What a sight that is. Beautiful square-lipped rhino, white rhino, white rhinoster. Is he going to go for a wallow? Looks like he may. What a beautiful sight that is, with a mirror image of it on the water. Just fabulous. I think it may lie down. tail curled up there. I think it may have drunk its fill. Let's just see here. Looks like it's starting to leave the area. Right, now that that wonderful rhino has left and included its mirror image, let's head back to the Greater Kruger and Rosie's pan. With a nice big southern giraffe. He's lost his fly swat. Wonder what happened there. Old Stompy tail, shame. Not much to keep the flies away now. A bit of a club that he's got. He doesn't have the whip of the tail, the hairs on the end of the tail anymore. Wonder what happened. So Anne's saying this is quite a tall one. Yeah, it does look like it. It looks like a decent sized individual. Nice dark colouring to it as well. Seems like it's aged very well, except for the loss of its, or the end of its tail. Looks like it does want to come in for a drink. It's just being its typical cautious self. And we do and have seen from the evidence that it's well worth being cautious if you're a giraffe coming in for a drink. We did see that that one sighting at Ol Donyo where the elephant attacked the giraffe for no apparent reason. I think just because he was in must, and so he was quite aggressive. And the giraffe was drinking. It looked like quite a big old bull as well. And he just seemed to irritate the elephant, who then rushed forward and stabbed him with his tusk. And it was the news was that the giraffe eventually died. And I'm sure then fed a lot of animals. But shame, the giraffe did absolutely nothing to the elephant. It's one of the most amazing sightings that I've had here on the Waterholes. And that does remind me of that, and so I think I'm not sure I will see that in a hurry again. The elephant attacking a giraffe and literally disemboweling it before it ran off. It probably didn't get very far. You see, also very interesting that because giraffe have such high blood pressure, they've got to have very tight skin. And I know from having two different species of dogs, well, they're the same species, but I've had a basset hound and a ridgeback, and they used to fight, or play fight a lot. The basset hound got very loose skin, never got any cuts, because, the skin just rolls when they bite each other. But the ridgeback was forever having cuts all over it, just from playing, but obviously rough play, with the basset hound, and very much due to that tight skin that they've got. And I think the same happened here. Because of the high blood pressure, they've got to have very tight skin, and so as a result was very easily pierced when the elephant rushed forward and pushed its tusk at it. So Sully saying always nervous around water. Yeah, you can bet your bottom dollar with giraffe. They're always going to be careful, always going to be anxious, always going to take their time. Their necks aren't long enough for their head to reach the water without having to sort of do the splits or do the crouch or a bit of a mix. What's this one going to do? Looks like it's going for a slight mix. And Annabelle saying, lovely dam cams today, Ralph. Time stands still. See, the giraffe just got spooked by, I think, a rising fish. That's how easily they get scared. That's why I think the depiction of a giraffe on the animation, Madagascar, is spot on. A hypochondriac that is scared of everything. And just remembered now what the name of the giraffe was on Madagascar. Melman. And from Wikipedia, they do say that Melman, who was Melman Mankiewicz, is a male reticulated giraffe. He sometimes pretends to be a hypochondriac. I don't think he pretends. Having doses of medicine for meals and doctor's appointments frequently. And he also dreams of being a doctor. So Pete in the UK saying, hi Ralph, another great show with lots of different species. Thank you. I saw my first swallow of spring yesterday, so our little migrants are returning. And thankfully, it's warming up at last. Maybe some of those swallows could have come from us, Pete. They've all left, and now you're getting to enjoy the sightings of them. So say hello to them from us. So then Maggie saying, Ralph, it looks as if the giraffe went to the barber shop for a tail haircut and the barber had a slip with his cutter. Yeah, it does look like that indeed. Or maybe the giraffe got a fright while he was trying to trim it and he got it cut off. So Dark Mane Lover saying this giraffe is so gorgeous, little tail, no problem. He's still stunning. Must agree. I'm not convinced that it's a male. I think it's in fact a female. And Daniel Swaffer, I think is that how I pronounce it. I'm sorry if it's wrong. Is this pan in South Africa? And Daniel, yes, indeed. It's in, you can see at the top of your screen there, Rosie's pan, the Olifant West Reserve, which is in the Greater Kruger Park. So we have a lot of cameras in and around the Greater Kruger Park, from the Sabi Sands to the Olifants West. These are all previously private game reserves, but now they're incorporated into the Kruger Park itself, with the fences having been dropped. So they were all neighbors, but they did have fences in between them. Now it's all incorporated and the animals can move all the way through. So it is a wonderful initiative and fantastic for the animals, and then it does make for great viewing for us as well. And there's that typical flick that the giraffe do post-drinking. And off she goes. We'll remember her, and if we see her again, we'll know exactly who it is, that short little tail. Nice, easy marker, that. We've also seen a couple of elephants that have lost their end of their, or the hair on the end of their tail as well. Okie dokie, now that the giraffe has left, I think we'll do the same, and let's go back to the Madikwe Game Reserve and Tau. And just when you thought we couldn't have any more diversity, we've now got ourselves a lovely Waterbuck bull. Just enjoying lying down, but he's ruminating. You can see there the cut ball has just come back up into his mouth, chewing now. And let's watch him as he swallows, takes a little break before it comes back up, and repeat. Quite easy to identify waterbuck dung because it sort of clumps together because it's got quite full of water, and so you often see them, they look like corn on the cob. Not the color, just the shape. There, he's swallowed now. Wait for it, and there it is back in his mouth. So Mindy, Tillapore, asking Ralph, they seem to chew in a circular motion. Do all herbivores chew the same way? I would say that the ruminants pretty much do, and the rest very similar as well. So they sort of drop the bottom jaw, push it to the side, and then grind them both over each other, and in so doing grinding the material between them. So that's what you can see it doing. Drops, pushes it out to the left, and then pulls it back up and to the right, and grinding over each other. And that's obviously also how the sort of teeth get worn down as they age, but very similar to a lot of them. The ruminants, they spend all this time chewing like this, so a lot more wear on their teeth, I would say, than the hindgut fermenters, but who also, it depends on what they feed on. See, with the likes of elephants, and they have their 6 sets of teeth, and eventually wear them down as well. So quite similar in terms of how they chew it and break it down, grind it down. And Lorraine saying, watching from the Southern Cape, these views are daily food for the soul. Thank you. And thanks for joining us, Lorraine, and your lovely words. Joanne Mello saying, I like Waterbuck, so pretty. They are indeed. For me, they look like cuddly teddy bears, especially the females. Very, sort of soft with the extra fur that they have. And Daniel Swaffer saying, do ruminants get better results by chewing from both sides? I'm not quite sure. I'll have a look into it, Daniel. I think they predominantly do it one way than the other. You see, this one sort of drops it to the left, and then when it's on the upward stroke, going to the right. So clockwise, I would say. I wonder if there's a preference between animals, like whether like an elephant that's left or right tusked, humans that are left or right handed. I wonder if there's a preference in the way that they chew. I'll do some digging. No, there doesn't seem to be much information on it. Maybe there's a study in that. Whenever you're looking for something, the researchers, or when you need to do a dissertation or whatever it might be, somebody's got to look into the fact around if ruminants all chew in the same direction, or if some prefer right over left, or anti-clockwise to clockwise, as that Waterbuck was feeding there now. Maybe it's similar to inertia, in that in the southern hemisphere, the ruminants will chew clockwise. Maybe in the northern hemisphere, they chew anti-clockwise. As the water goes down in the different directions in the different hemispheres, then what would happen on the equator? Maybe the animals would just chew up and down. But this is the fact why I love all these questions coming in. Every now and then you get a question that you've never had before, and this being one of them. So now I'm going to be watching animals a lot closer when they feed, because I've never thought about if they're all feeding exactly the same in the same direction. You would think it's something that you would notice, having been around animals so much, and wild animals and ruminants and hindgut fermenters. But I've never thought about which direction they were chewing. I'm going to now. That zebra getting a nice scratch on its head on the termite mound. Lots of uses from a termite mound. Little gold mines out in the bush. So Dark Mane Lover is asking, what is that white small mountain where the zebras are trying to sniff? That's a termite mound, Dark Mane Lover. So it's obviously taken on the color of the soil of the area, because that's what the termites are using, with the addition of their saliva to build these mounds. Obviously below the surface of the soil, they harvest and cultivate fungus. So because the termites cannot digest the chitin in the grass, so what they do is they grow fungus that digests the chitin, and then the termites will feed on the results of that. Now, every species of termite is specific to the species of fungus that they have this relationship with. And every species of fungus cannot survive without the termites. So this is an obligatory symbiotic relationship. One cannot survive without the other. And we have hundreds of different species of termites, and each and every one has got a different and specific species of fungus that they cultivate. And very often after the rains, you can actually see what species of fungus they are cultivating by the mushrooms that come out the surface. Now, that mound is actually the chimney for the chamber beneath the ground, and these fungus cultivating sort of chamber, that they keep the temperature perfect for that fungus by opening and closing certain pores on the top of the chimney. So in summer, there will be a lot open, trying to keep it cooler inside, and in winter, it will be a lot more closed. And we used to use this, especially in winter as well, especially when we're out on trail. It's literally a heater, because you go up to these termite mounds and you find the pores of where they are releasing the nice warm air, and you can warm your hands up. And very often I used to sit on it as well and get my bum warm too. So Joanne Mello asking, do the animals need salt in their diet, and where do they get it? Well, Joanne, you will often see animals sort of feeding at a termite mound. We've seen them doing it a lot at the likes of Jamala. There's obviously lots of mineral salts around waterholes, especially from the evaporative processes, and the deposition of the water that flows into those waterholes. So then when it evaporates, it obviously concentrates those mineral salts around the edges of these particular spots. You see this young zebra doing a little bit of a funny dance. So the animals then go through there, and they identify these spots, and they'll feed on the ground, termed geophagia, the eating of dirt. And that's where they get very often their mineral salts. Sometimes you can also have little natural springs that are high in salinity, and when that evaporates, then they'll go and feed there as well. So yes, the animals do need salts, and we very often see them doing this, especially so in winter, when they're obviously not getting as much nutrition as they would be in summer after the rains have come. So then they do feed on those mineral salts a lot more during those periods. So Miriam 200217 is asking, are honey badgers nocturnal, as you don't see many on live camera? Miriam, mostly, yes. You can see them during the day. In fact, I have had a honey badger on the camera. It was at Juma. It was off in the distance, and it was digging in the sand, obviously after sand frogs. But that's the only time. I've seen one. And we saw it a couple of days in a row. I think it had worked out that there were lots of these sand frogs in on the bank or just near to the waterhole. So it was digging there for hours on end for a couple of days in a row. But that's it. So generally, yeah, around about sunset, just after, that's when they come out. And it was quite easy for me to see this in their habits because at the Halali camp in Etosha, they used to come every single night, and they used to arrive just after the sun. Well, it was actually more so at around about 10 o'clock because I used to normally finish dinner with the guests, do the washing and everything. But during dinner, I used to tell the guests that to walk around the campsite at 10 o'clock, and they were pretty much always on time. So, and then you would see them moving around the camp pretty much the whole night after that. So, yeah, mainly nocturnal, but they can be active sometimes during the day. Now, Lorraine saying that termites are so overlooked and underappreciated. Absolutely, Lorraine. You know, they help with... these are little nutrient hotspots here as well, because they're bringing up a lot of the nutrients from below the soil. And if you know anything about mushrooms and fungus and what they do in breaking down and sort of making a lot of biomass and vegetation re-available to the soil, they're the ones that do that, as well as sort of nitrogen fixers or the mycorrhizal fungus that helps. You know, without fungus there would be no plants. So we as humans, we speak of trees and plants as being the reason that we're able to breathe air. Well, guess what? Without fungus and a healthy fungal network below the surface of the soil, there would be no trees. No plants would survive without fungus. And so I think that the reason that we're able to survive is more so because of fungus as the primary reason, not so much because of plants. No fungus, no trees. No trees, no oxygen. So I think we've got to give a little bit more credit to a lot of the things that we don't even really see very often or realize that they're there. So Maria D saying, good day to all WildEarth lovers. What a beautiful sunny day it is in South Africa. Not everywhere, Maria D, but in this part of South Africa, it definitely is a lovely sunny day. There's a little bit of clouds along the east coast, but other than that, it is a balmy day. A lovely autumn's day, so it's not too hot, not too cold. I think it's quite comfortable. Some more elephants arriving. Chasing the zebra off. So, in speaking of those fungus cultivating termites, and here we're watching the largest land mammal on the planet, these awesome big elephant bulls. Do you know that actually the largest living organism on Earth is the Armillaria solidipes, or the honey fungus? It's a network of fungus in the Pacific Northwest which spans 5.5 kilometers across, covering about 2,384 acres. It's about 8.8 kilometers squared, and it's estimated to be over 2,000 years old. So not only is it extremely important to have a healthy fungal network below the surface of the soil, there is an intellectual property that has been alive for over 2,000 of years, surviving bacteria, viruses, and everything else that's been thrown at it, and still thriving. It's amazing to think. I think we need to learn a lot more about fungus. Now, excellent question come in from Doc GL saying, Ralph, do elephants eat mushrooms? And I really like this question, as we see these ellies just having a little bit of playtime with each other. I'll say more so than anything aggressive, or too aggressive anyway. And this is from The Independent in the UK, saying elephants use pharmaceuticals, which is absolutely fascinating and just magnificent. Deprived of the animal kingdom's equivalent of boots, or for us you would say clicks in South Africa, or pharmacy companies, elephants have instead displayed incredible intelligence in foraging their natural environment for cures and remedies to ailments. There's a specific word for this: zoopharmacognosy. Zoopharmacognosy. An animal's knowledge of medicine, and elephants have a PhD in it. They often eat dirt, like we've been chatting about, geophagy, to neutralize toxins from plants that they've eaten, and induce labor using the Boraganaceae tree. Recent research has even discovered that the South African elephant fought off extinction with the help of Ganoderma, which is a mushroom used in traditional Chinese medicine as an anti-cancer and antiviral agent. This is also commonly known as reishi, and we get a lot in South Africa called the artist's conch. It's a shelf mushroom. It's a very hard mushroom that we generally make teas and so on out of it, but I'm sure an elephant would grind it down in its mouth. I do this at home. We often find them growing off trees in the Eastern Cape. And we just boil it to make tea. And I've found, even my mother, after extensive use, found it as a wonderful painkiller before she had a hip replacement. And the doctor could not believe that she was not taking any medication when he saw the state of her hip. And she told him that she was just drinking reishi, that I'd given her tea on a regular basis. But obviously these elephants knew this too. And what's even more incredible is that people who live near to these elephants who had been feeding on the Ganoderma, the reishi, the mushroom of immortality, they would even boil the elephant dung and drink it, much as we would drink herbal tea for its health benefits. So the short answer is yes, elephants do eat mushrooms, but I don't think in the traditional sense when, people mostly just think of button mushrooms when we speak of mushrooms. And when you look at those shelf fungus, the Ganoderma species, they don't really even look like a mushroom. The traditional mushroom, if you can say that, sort of just looks like a growth coming out the side of a tree. And you break that off, and you can make teas out of it. But obviously these termite mounds, they do produce the Termites species of fungus, only cultivated by the termites, and they are masters at it. Nobody has ever, still to this day, been able to cultivate the Termites fungus. And in South Africa, we get the Umkawan. It's down the east coast, from the Eastern Cape up into KwaZulu-Natal, that especially after good rains, the mushroom fruiting body comes out of the termite mound, sometimes even up to about 60 centimeters tall. They get massive. And those literally taste like fillet steak. It is incredible. It has the same texture as fillet steak, the same taste of it, and the same juiciness as well. It's totally uncanny. If you had to close your eyes and tell somebody that you're going to give them a fillet steak and they take it and eat it, they would not know the difference. You just got to be a little bit careful because they do get heavily infested very quickly by flies, and they lay their eggs and then the maggots come out very quickly. So you've got to, once harvested, cook it as quickly as possible because it's crazy how quick those flies get onto it. In Namibia, they've got the Omayova, which comes out, it's in a region between Okahanya and Usakos, I think. No, it's between Usakos and Karibib, but also towards Ochivarango. All the farmers, they have a competition each year to see who can get the biggest mushroom from their termite mounds. And the same thing, it's the similar species to the Umkawan that we get in Natal, slightly different, but almost the same. And all the same principle. You must remember that the fungus and the mycelial network below the surface of the soil, all within a tree or whatever they are colonizing, that is the tree. And the mushroom fruiting body that we eat or we see is the fruit. That's just for reproduction. But the major part of the organism is the mycelium, which is forms the basis of the body of the organism, and the mushroom just being the fruiting body for reproduction. So Madison V was saying, I love how the zebra just blend in so nicely to the area. They're my favorite African animal. Missing the drives from Madikwe. Yeah, also missing the drives from Madikwe, Madison. And it's incredible. I must say that zebra are the most photogenic of all the animals out here. That is their superpower, that's for sure. When I was working at, the training camp for training guides in the Greater Kruger area, what we actually did was we found an extinct termite mound, which means it's no longer active for whatever reason. So we dug around it, and then we also took a saw and we cut it down the middle. So we sort of got to see the bottom chamber as well as the intricate tunnels towards the top of the chimney. It was absolutely amazing and a wonderful sort of teaching tool that we could take the students to actually show them what a termite mound looks like beneath the surface of the soil, and a lovely cross-section of it as well. And that's the only example that I've seen of that. But I wouldn't suggest doing it to a live one for the obvious reasons. It can take a long time for them to build these termite mounds. Something also quite interesting, they can be used as a navigation tool, because generally the termites will work on the mound at night because a lot of them lack any pigmentation, so they get burnt by the sun. So as the mud dries in the morning, it will obviously fall over in a particular direction. Normally towards the it almost starts to fall towards north. So that is an excellent navigation tool. But you look at them in general and you'll see all of them pointing in one direction. So in the general same direction. Anyway, we're slowly heading towards the end of the show. I hope you've all enjoyed it today. Thanks for joining us. Thanks to the wildlife, of course, for being the stars of the show. And to you, the viewers. And, of course, the WildEarth team. Without all of you, none of this could happen. Us as the naturalists, we just sit here talking nonsense. So we got the easy part. But anyway, don't go anywhere. There's lots more coming your way after this. And I'm sure the naturalists on the Sunset Safari will be out and about seeing what they can find for you as well. So there's lots more wildlife coming your way. Don't go anywhere, but I'm out of here. Cheers for now, folks. Bush greetings and give it horns. Bye.